Hi Flosstube friends, it's Sherry, Colorado Cross Stitcher here on YouTube and also on Instagram, and my channel is about cross stitching. So thanks so much for popping in and joining me today. I wish we were sitting over the table with a cup of coffee and could chat back and forth, but that's what the comments are for, and I love reading your comments. I read all of them, and I'm so glad when you can talk to me that way because it almost feels like we're conversing a little bit. So I have a lot to show you today, some finishes, some plans, some finishing ideas, and a giveaway at the end. So let's jump right in. So last time our previous question of the day was, if you were going to collect silks, which line of silks would be the one you would want to collect? And I found it so interesting that NPI Silks won out, hands away, that's not the term, what is that? Far and away, hands above. You know, it was a lot ahead of everything else. So, you know, I don't see a lot of patterns that call for NPIs. Maybe it's just the patterns that I collect don't have that. But so I thought that was really interesting. I don't think I've used NPI silks. I just ordered one after you guys all voted so I could see what it was like and try it. So I'm looking forward to doing that. So thank you for weighing in on that. And then I had a comment from Anne who said, remember last time I was sharing some of my favorite Blackbird design pieces. We had just gotten the news of Barb's passing, and I wanted to share some of my favorite things from them. Being one of the designers I collect the most. And Anne left a comment and said, you said that they were your favorite designer and you love their patterns, and then all you talked about was changing the material and changing the threads and changing the words. So to me, that didn't mean you love their designs. Well, that was an interesting comment because it sent me off on a path of really thinking through what makes things my favorite and what thought process do I go through when I'm thinking about making changes, and does that mean I don't like what they chose, or does that just mean I want to use stash or I want to do something different? So Anne, thank you so much for your comment because it was really a good thing for me to think through, and I wanted to share a couple of those thoughts with you guys. We have talked in the past on some of my videos and some of my questions of the day about making changes to some of your patterns, and is that okay, and how do you go about that? So I want to talk just a little bit about that today. So first of all, I've shared before, I rarely use the called for fabrics. And that is just a matter of, I don't usually have the called for fabrics. And even now, I mean, it's harder than ever to get fabrics. You know, a lot of the patterns call for R&R reproductions or lakeside linens or Picture This Plus, and it is so hard to get fabric from any one of those places at the moment. Now you can, I know they're working really hard to continue dyeing, but let's say I decide I want to start a project tomorrow and it calls for a linen that I don't have. It is going to be a couple of months before I can get that called for fabric, and I don't want to wait a couple of months in most cases. So I tend to collect the fabrics that I like, and for me it's a lot of neutrals. I don't stitch on colored fabrics very often, and if I find one I love, I tend to buy it when I see it so that I can have it in my stash ready to use. And I think all you need to do is pull together the threads that the pattern calls for and lay them on top of the fabric and see if all the threads show up. And that's really, do they look good on that fabric? Are there some light colors that kind of blend in to your light colored fabric that you chose? Maybe you want to pick one of the darker fabrics in your collection. So I rarely use called for fabrics, and I've always been really happy with the way things turn out. So I do change fabrics most of the time. Now threads. You know, I have a stash of threads, and even now we're having more and more independent dyers of threads, or some threads like color and cotton threads, which are beautiful, but they're not called for in patterns at this point. Hopefully in the future they will be more and more. But there's some threads that we all collect that we would never use if we don't sub them in sometimes. I don't mind subbing in colors at all when it's DMC, because I feel like that's a pretty cut and dry color exchange. If I want a redder, a bluer red, or a more orange red, or if a piece has like 6 or fewer colors, and they're all very different, I have no problem subbing those in. Like my Christmas garden that I shared on my last video, that's a Blackbird design pattern, and in the pattern book it is very pastel, very light colored, very Blackbird Designs colors. It's absolutely beautiful. But I decided, since there's only 4 colors, red, green, brown, and gold, that I wanted to swap those out and pull threads in my stash that I could use for that instead. And I love the brighter color. Now, some of you probably look at my Christmas garden finished and think, oh my gosh, why did she make that so bright? Because the other one was so subtle and beautiful. Agreed, the other one was beautiful and subtle. I wanted something that was a little more intense. And because Anne asked this question, I was just thinking, I do tend to go towards samplers or patterns that have deeper colors or more intense colors. And you know, I love Blackbird, and I'm going to show you one of the things I'm working on now, that the colors are very subtle, and I love that. But I feel like I get more motivated to stitch on something when the colors really pop. So like Brenda Key's samplers are great for that. A lot of the Hands Across the Sea samplers are more intense, deeper. I'm not going to say brighter. Sometimes it's brighter, but a lot of times it's just deeper color, more saturation in the colors, and I tend to be drawn towards those things. I think the biggest change, though, in terms of making things your own, is changing words, changing motifs perhaps, or adding in things. And that's just something that personally I love to do. I've shared with you guys that I'm working on a sampler wall, and I want to make a sampler for each of my 4 grandparents and each of Paul's 4 grandparents. And you know, I'll go back further than that too at some point, because I love having our family names on the wall. And that is a big change to do that. Now, do I think designers care if we change their patterns? Is that something that is something we shouldn't do? Should we just take it as it is and stitch it as it was meant to be stitched? I don't think most designers mind. I think they're thrilled that we were drawn to purchase the pattern and that we loved their designs enough to want to stitch that. And then if we have ways that we can make it personal to us, I think most of them would cheer that on. I remember when I first got back into stitching in 2017, I got back in because I saw the Houses of Hawk Run Hollow by Kathy Barrick, and I loved those stitched houses. I just thought they were fabulous. And I got into it, and I thought, I'm just going to do that one because I don't have room on my walls to do more than one more cross stitch piece in my entire life. And so I did that. Now that particular piece has death verse on it, and death verse is just talking about, you know, when I am in the grave, and I don't know, all this stuff. I didn't want the death verse. Death verse was very common back then because death was very common back then before they had, you know, antibiotics and diagnostics, and, you know, it was just a very common part of their life. So it was included on a lot of samplers. But the reason I was drawn to the Houses of Hawk Run Hollow is because I love houses and I love home, and it reminded me of home. And so I pulled out different sayings about home that I wanted to include. So I still followed Kathy's pattern in that I put words where she put words, and I even, you know, there's so many words on her original piece that I got a lot of the alphabet, you know, words right from her, and I could rechart it onto my chart, graph paper chart. And so I brought that back out. I know I've shown it to you before, but again, this is my Houses of Hawk Run Hollow, and I just, as you can see, I just put different sayings in there, and I just charted them so they go in smoothly, I think, because I'm still taking the same amount of time or space for what I wanted to write and still using her wonderful alphabet, but just adding my own touch to that. And I put a photo of this finished piece in her Facebook group, fans of Kathy Barrick, fans of Hawk Run Hollow, one of those, back 4 years ago when I did it, and she commented on it and thought it was wonderful, and I thought that was so nice of her to comment on, because it reassured me, well, I guess it was okay that I changed something. And then when I did the Village of Hawk Run Hollow, I wanted to personalize it for my family. So again, instead of it saying Jacob's gristmill, it says Danny's gristmill, because that's our son. And I put my grandfather was a minister, and so I put his name in this square along with the name of the church that he retired from. I made a square for our daughter, and she is into coffee, so I made it Julia's Tea and Coffee Shop. I put Paul's name in there as the blacksmith. And then this one I did change the whole last square because it was a cemetery square, I think. And I wanted to put my name on there too to go with the family, so I made it into a quilt shop square. Usually I don't change the whole square, I just change the names. But now when I look at this piece, it feels so personal to me, and I love seeing it on the wall. Not that there was anything wrong with the way the piece was designed. That's what drew me to the whole piece in the first place. But adding personalization just makes it even more special to me and my family. So that's my thoughts on that. Now, what about reproduction samplers, where, some girl aged 9 stitched something and a designer reproduced it? Are we obligated to keep that girl's name on the sampler? Again, you do you. You do whatever you want. When you purchase a pattern and you spend time stitching it, you can do whatever you want. I think if that girl could come back and see the hundreds, if not thousands of people stitching her beautiful work, she would be awestruck that many of us wanted to copy what she did. I don't think that it would matter to her to have her name on it or not. Now, I do like to keep, in those circumstances, I do like to keep her name somewhere on the sampler. Sometimes it's on the front, like the one I shared last time in my last video, the G. Leger. I moved her name to a different part of the sampler so I could include my grandmother's name in the place where her name was, big. But I have another one to show you today where I couldn't figure out where to add her name in on the front, so I of course am going to add her name in on the back, and I'll show you that in a minute. Another one that I personalized was the Feast of Friendship, and that's one of the ones that I shared last time where the commenter was talking about me changing words, and this says Feast of Friendship on it. Well, to be honest, I did this in 2020 and I was not feeling like there was a Feast of Friendship going on in 2020. Certainly I had Zoom calls with my friends, and I, had phone calls and texts and emails, but I was feeling a lack of in-person friendship. I was feeling a hole in the friendship, the whole sphere of friendship. But what I was feeling was a lot of peace during 2020. Certainly concern, like concern now as things go back up, but overall peace and hope, which does not rest here on earth for me. And one of the things that I've always loved is the saying peace and plenty. To me, that means I can be at peace because we have plenty of blessings in our life and are well taken care of. And so I've always loved peace and plenty, and so I did peace and plenty in my piece instead of Feast of Friendship. Now, if I had been working on this piece at a retreat surrounded by my stitching friends, I may have felt like Feast of Friendship was perfect for this piece at this time. Stitching it in 2020, peace and plenty is something that speaks to me in this particular piece. And I felt like the bowl of fruit just indicated an overwhelming, bountiful blessing of gifts. And so that's why I changed that. So there's always a reason for changing. I don't change something just to say I changed this and be able to tell people I changed that. I make changes on the words or the picture itself to make it more meaningful to me and my family. And when I look at these on my wall, then I'm reminded of the thoughts that went into that and the whole process. And I hope it's meaningful to my family one day too. So those are my thoughts. I'd love to hear your thoughts if you have thoughts on changing things, how to go about changing things, if you think it's right or wrong. Certainly if you're a designer and you want to weigh in and you want to say, I absolutely don't think people should be changing my designs, I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to hear your opinions on that. So, but thank you again, Anne, for bringing that up, because I really had a good time just being more introspective about why do I change things and what do I change and how do I look at that. So I appreciate that. All right, let's go on to projects that I worked on this past month. So I did have a finish with a Martha Scott, and this is a GGR design. And I loved this design from the very first time I saw it. It's a little sampler. I think the colors, again, the colors are intense, so of course I like them. And they're kind of playful. There are so many different colors. Like, look at that pop of orange in the berry baskets on the bottom. Just so cute. I loved the little house. I sat on this, got the flosses, and I thought I was going to jump right in, but I couldn't decide what to do about the Martha Scott. Should I put that in? It takes up such a big part of the sampler. Can I remove that and put a family name? But if I do that, can I figure out where to put her name elsewhere in this? But the piece is so small that really where else would I put it? And so I just dithered about it. And I mentioned it in one of my videos, and one of you guys said, just do it the way you want to do it. Otherwise you would have already stitched it. And that was just the kick I needed, because I thought, she's right. Obviously I want to include a family name. I'm just going to jump in and do it and not worry about it. And so that's what I did. I made this piece for Paul's grandma, Ruth Roberts Arnold, and Stockton is where she was born. And I put her birthday and year on there. And again, in this particular piece, I could not figure out a place to add Martha Scott and her age and her date. So in those cases, what I do is, remember I told you that I do a library card on the back of all my finished pieces with all the information, and that's where I will put her name, her date, her age, just so it's kept with the piece, because I do like having that. But I loved this piece for Paul's grandma because she was a hard-working farmer's wife. She, during harvest times, they had 18 farm hands that she had to make a full hot lunch and a full hot dinner for. And I cannot imagine doing that day in and day out. So she was a hard-working lady. She was so kind to me and always so sweet. And as she got older, her son took over the farm and she bought a little house in town. And so this little house reminds me of the little house that she had. And I know she just loved living in that little house. So this, and when I got done stitching it, it just made me smile to look on there and see somebody's name that was dear to me and dear to my husband. And that's what I love about personalizing samplers with family names. And I know someday when I'm gone, that is going to be really special to my family members too. So that was a finish. I also had a smaller finish, and this one is a Blackbird design, and it's one of their small patterns, and I don't remember where I got it. I don't think it says on the back, but it's Gathering Basket. I feel like a lot of their designs that are small like this, some of them are Reward of Merits or different things. I feel like they were done for retreats or something, and they always end up in books. I do not know if this one is in a book, but if you have a book and it's in there, you can leave a comment below. But I did this on 16 count something. And again, I changed the color of the letters for the initials of our family members. My husband and I and our son and daughter. And I really love how it turned out. I did it on a 16 count Aida, which I tend to want to, I always try and have a project like this on Aida that I can stitch without a magnifying lamp that I use for all my other stuff. If I'm going to stitch in the car, if I'm going to go visit somebody and I want to have stitching in the evening to do, but I'm not going to drag my whole big light, then I tend to want to stitch on Aida. And I still love the look of Aida, and I don't mind stitching on it at all. And again, it's just easy to stitch on when I don't have the magnifying. So I love how it turned out. And it feels like a fall piece to me. I almost feel like the bird looks like it's holding a pumpkin basket. It's not a regular basket, but it has a fall feel. So I'm going to enjoy using that in my fall decorating coming up here pretty soon. So that was a finish. And then I started my August cross stitch camp project. The challenge in August is to use a floss or a fabric that's new to you, because I thought it would be fun to have people branch out a little bit and try something new. So I decided to do this modern folk embroidery pattern, Rule of Life. And if you haven't watched Jacob's video where he talks about this, it's so interesting to hear about the hard S, and I never knew there was such a thing. I wondered why the S's look like F's, and so it's interesting to watch. If you haven't watched, go check that out. And this calls for Leo and Roxy floss, which is the new to me floss. You can get that at evertote.com. She is out of Canada, Off the Grid Needle Arts, I believe. I don't know that it's going to take me 3 of those blues, and they're showing a little bit brighter on the screen than they are. And that's actually not the called for blue, because, hold please, glasses. The called for is, let's see, oh, I changed a couple. Plum Shadow, so that's called for caramel. Yeah, the called for color is Vampish, and I'm using Royale. And I'm just going to tell you, this Royale blue is amazing. I love how it's showing up on my piece. So now let me show you the piece. So here's my August start. And I'm really enjoying the floss. And again, like I said, you can really see some of the color changes in that blue. Here, I'll hold it up closer and then I'll back up. You can really see some of the color changes going on in the blue, which I just love. I love the subtle variation in there. And I hope I can get this done in August. It's kind of a big piece. But I feel like, you know, the letters will go quicker, the border not so quick. I'm just gonna work at it. We'll see how it goes. But it's my first modern folk embroidery piece too, and there are so many of Jacob's pieces that I want to do. So first of many, I'm sure. And then the other thing I worked on is my Blackbird Designs Bells of Christmas Day. This is a great book, but I got this book because of that checkerboard house on the back, which I just think is adorable. And I had started that, and I had gotten just the outline of the border done, and then a few of the dividing lines. So here's where I'm at now with that. So I put a little bit of time into that with the alphabet, finished the leaves and the berries and the border, started the checkerboard house. At least I got the red squares done in the checkerboard house. Now, look at the browns, because this is something I want to bring up as far as changing colors. I would never change colors in a piece like this, because I would never have picked the colors that they picked. Look at this. I don't know how well you're going to be able to see this. I'm going to see if I can lay it on top of my fabric. There's so many browns in this piece, and to me there's not a lot of variation in all of these browns. And I think, how do you even look at your colors and think, well, I'm going to need that brown, and I'm also going to need this brown, and I'm going to need this brown as well, when they're so close. I don't know if I can do this or not. When they're so close together. All right, let me see if I can hold it like this. Can you see those browns? There is not a lot of difference in some of those browns. They're very similar. And I just think, well, surely you don't need that many browns if they're so similar. Let's go with something that's a little different. But look how well it works in this piece. And that is the magic of threads pulled by Blackbird Designs. I would never have done it, and I can't think of it looking any better than it does. So there are times to change colors, and there are times to just go with what the designer has pulled because they have such a good sense of color in that particular piece. And again, with subtle variation like this, I'm just going with their subtle variation. It's just the pieces with very different colors that I can maybe sub in some of my floss stash for. But this is beautiful. I love working on it, and I hope I can get that finished quick because I want to get it framed. All right, let's talk about finishing a little bit. And this is my 3 things. You know how I like to do 3 things that I share with you each time. This is my 3 things this time, 3 different ways to have some finishes. And it's all involving antiques. So we have antique stores about 5 minutes down the road from us, and I love going there. I try and go there about once a month. Just a minute, I have to get a drink of water. That was one of the hardest, or one of the things I missed the most during COVID, was not being able to pop in there once a month to see what fun things they have. So I picked this up, and it's heavy, so I'm going to try and bring it over without too much trouble. So I picked up this red cabinet, and it's red, it's not orange. I know it's looking orange on the screen. Picked this up because I thought, wouldn't this be cute for displays? And it has a little drawer at the bottom too. And I need to stand it up a little more, and it was not very well painted. Somebody had repainted it and not done a very good job, so I need to do a little bit more grunging up on it. But what I did was I have a few old needleworker magazines like this, which just have the best old advertisements in there. You know, color, not color. I'm careful because I've cut so much out of it. But it's just fun to look at, these pages. And they're not very expensive if you can find a stash of them at an antique store. Cut some of these out because I then Mod Podged on the inside. Okay, this is Mod Podge. I always call it Mod Podge, but it's not, it's Mod. And what this is, it's like a glue and a shellac a little bit. And you put it on with one of those sponge brushes. So what I did is I cut all different pieces out that I wanted to use. I made sure that I had, you know, ones that fit all the way out and all the way on the sides. Then you brush the Mod Podge on the back. It's like a glue. And then you put it in place. And then once you have everything in place, you brush over it, and then it's like kind of like a shellac. Well, as I was doing this, my pages or my little clippings started crinkling up, and I thought, oh my gosh, that's going to be terrible. I've wrecked it. And so I started trying to smooth it out, you know, pushing my thumb along there to kind of just get everything flat. And it didn't really work that great. I was so happy to see when it dried that it dried pretty flat, pretty straight. And that's because, of course your paper is going to swell up as it gets wet, and it's going to smooth out and tighten as it dries. But what I picture is, and I'm going to take a picture of this with pillows in it, little pin keeps in it, and put it as one of my intro photos for this video. So you guys have already seen that. I haven't taken the picture yet, but you have seen it. And I just thought that would be a fun way to demo or to display different pin pillows. All right, hang on, because I wanted to show you one other thing I've done, or I didn't do it, my husband actually did it. So hang on just a second. Enjoy looking at the little cabinet. I'll be right back. Okay, so here's another thing that you can do with old magazines and Mod Podge. And Paul made these for our yarn shop for displays using those same magazines and the same Mod Podge thing. And so we had a model dummy, what is this called? Anyway, we had one of these that I bought at a display store, and then he did plaster casting of it, and then covered it with all these different black and white ads. And isn't it cool? So we have several of these at the yarn shop. I own the Loopy U yarn shop. We have several of these that we show shop samples on, and I have one at home so that when I take photos, I can use that one too. So anyway, old magazines are really fun to make use of. Whether you can find a cabinet like that to do, or little shelving units that are really not that cute, but if you Mod Podge them, they turn into something fun. So that is idea number one. Idea number two, I have this heart-shaped cake tin, antique, and I've seen these several times at antique stores, so I don't think they're very rare, but I thought, wouldn't that be fun to put magnets on the back of some of my pin keeps and make a little display in my sewing room, because that's where I keep this particular pan. I don't have any of my pin keeps with magnets on them yet, but I do have some of my wool applique pin cushions and pin keeps, so I popped those in there. And I can just see doing up a bunch of like tomato pin keeps and putting that in there, because this is again what I keep in my sewing room. It doesn't have a hanger on the back because it is a real cake pan, so I just have it resting in a basket, and then it's propped up that way. But I am definitely going to do some fun little sewing room kinds of pin keeps to put in there. So that's another finishing idea with vintage or antique things. And then when I was having my coffee this morning, I was looking at my kitchen cabinets, and on top of my kitchen cabinets I have old coffee tins and baskets. And I saw this coffee tin because I'm thinking, of doing fall kinds of stitching now. I thought those are perfect Halloween colors. Wouldn't that be fun to do a finish on the top of there and have it be sitting on top of that? I love Sanka because my grandparents used to make their coffee with Sanka. So that's the reason I bought this particular tin. But again, it just says Halloween to me. And you could even make it removable. Like if I didn't want to always have the Halloween on top of here, I could just do it in a little round pattern to set it on top temporarily for the season, and then pop this back up onto my kitchen cabinets at the end of the season. So that's cool. And then I was looking at this one and I thought, well, that would be a fun one for patriotic, wouldn't it? I love that this says 3 cents off. That was a big bargain back when this was for sale, 3 cents off. But I was looking at eBay, and there are so many tins available in different colors that I just think it would be so fun to start doing some finishing on tins. Now, finishing in a circle, I've done that before. It's a little bit tricksy, but totally doable. Probably Vanna has a video on that. You know, Vanna the Twisted Stitcher, she is my go-to gal for everything finishing. She explains it so simply. Her results are always fantastic. So I'm going to check and see if Vanna has a round finishing tutorial, so I can do that right. But I think that would be really fun. The other thing is, you can, when you're doing this, you can actually pick a floss color that exactly matches the red on here, or the blue, or this particular orange, and it's going to look perfect, like it was made to go together. So that's an example of swapping out threads where your finishing will really look even better. And then, I know that was 3 things, but I also wanted to mention Teresa Kogut's great idea of finishing on old books. And the reason I love this, and the reason she does it, is because it's easy to set it on a shelf that way or that way. You don't have to worry about hangers. They just make really cute displays. And again, I assume if you're using a red book, it's because there's some red in your pattern. You can pick the exact red from your flosses to exactly match the book, which is going to look so cool when you finish it off. So old books are also neat. And I noticed on eBay, you can buy groupings of like 10 green books or 10 red books or 10 blue books and get a sampling, and they're really not expensive. So another thing to look for on eBay if you're looking for tins and books. All right, so those are my 3 things, 3 different ways to look at using some vintage articles in your finishing process. All right, let's see what else. Again, with the water, good grief. All right, let's talk about haul. I have 9 patterns for my haul, but they all go together. So really that's like one pattern, right? But I came across these loose feathers, set of 9 by Blackbird Designs. I think I saw one of you guys working on this on Instagram. They're all 90, I think 91 by 91, which I think too is similar to what my Houses of Hawk Run Hollow were size-wise. And you can do them all independently, of course, but this person on Instagram, whoever you are, was doing it in one piece, and I just thought, oh my gosh, that's beautiful. All of the colors of blues and tans, and there's some greens in there, and oh my gosh. So I'm going to show you these patterns. And again, there's 9 of them, and they're so cool. And I had originally bought one, thinking I was going to do one. This one, because I love the cat, of course. But then when I saw whoever you are doing it all as one, and I came across all of them to buy, I just had to do it. I'm really looking forward to it. There's houses, there's birds, there's flowers and trees. It's just going to be so much fun to do. And to figure out how I want to arrange them. Can't wait to do this. So that is my haul. Now let's move right into plans for next time. And I've got some. I want to finish my August project. I'm going to have to come up with some more stitching time this month because I don't know how I'm going to get all this done. Well, I want to finish my August project, and I'm really loving working on that. I want to stitch and fully finish this particular piece so I can show you guys that for the next time. And what I'm thinking of doing is out of the Winds of Autumn book, and I want to do this piece, October 31st. Now that should be pretty simple. It's all one color. And I just have to figure out what size fabric I want to work on to have that be the perfect fit for the top. But I feel like Blackbird certainly has plenty of round designs for toppers to tins like this. So now I'm on the hunt for more tins. What can I use in what different colors? This is the greatest book. I want to show you. There's a couple, well, there's several. Oh, this one I've wanted to do forever. It's that jumbo strawberry with the crow on it. It's actually a really big piece, so it's going to take some stitching time. I probably won't do it this season, but... And then I already did one of the ones in here as a smaller piece when it was sold individually. I'll show you that next time again. But I love that one. So I want to do the October 31st before the next video so I can finish that on my Sanka coffee tin and see if I really do like that particular option. So finished August project, October 31st Halloween project. I want to work on my Blackbird little checkerboard house project. And then I had an idea for September. So, for Cross Stitch Camp, we have a Facebook group and we'd love to have you join. It's called Cross Stitch Camp with an exclamation mark, 3 separate words. I will link it in the show notes below. Please come join us. Just the nicest group of people over there. We're having a lot of fun chatting. I throw in getting to know you questions at least once a week. That has been super fun. And a lot of the people over there wanted that group to go on after Cross Stitch Camp. And because I plan to do Cross Stitch Camp every summer now for stitchers for the foreseeable future, I thought, well, let's just have some other challenges. Now, once a month challenges are, there's a little bit of, not pressure, because you can finish or not finish, totally up to you, but a little bit of pressure if you're the kind of person who says, well, if I'm doing it, I gotta follow the deadlines. And doing 3 of those in a row can be a little much. So we're not going to continue monthly challenges like that because I want to give everybody a break. The monthly challenges will be back next summer. But I have a fall challenge, and then we're going to have a 1-month winter camp challenge next winter, this coming up winter. And then we'll, of course, jump into summer camp again. So, you know how everybody talks about Sampler September. That's a thing where people work on samplers in the month of September. But what if you're not a sampler maker? Now, I am, but what if you're not? So I thought we could do Showstopper September. Showstopper could be a sampler, absolutely. Or it could be some other wow kind of a project. I came up with this because for Camp Loopy, we have challenges each month for knitting camp, and for August it was make a showstopper. And I leave the definition up to you. Again, it could be the size of the project, it could be the number of threads in the project, it could be, well, this is a showstopper because I've had this in my stash and on my want list forever. You know, I felt that way about my All Creatures Great and Small, that Barbara Anna design, where I think I shared that with you a couple of videos ago. I'm still waiting for that to get framed because the frame was on back order. That was a piece I bought because I wanted that on my wall. Now, you know, you're probably thinking, well, mostly I buy things if I want them on my wall. But that was just one I thought, wow, if I could do that big piece someday, that would be really cool. And I love having it done. I cannot wait to get it back. But another piece that I have that fits in that same category is His Eye is on the Sparrow by Heartstrings Samplery. Isn't that an amazing piece? I just think that's fabulous. There are all kinds of animals in there, which I love. And I love the sentiment behind the verse. His eye is on the sparrow, and I know he watches me. And I love that. So I got this idea when I was watching Brenda and Laura's latest video, Brenda and the Serial Starter. And Brenda is going to start Consider the Lilies in September. And that is a companion piece to His Eye is on the Sparrow. That one has more trees and flowers. This one has more animals. I love that one too, but I'd already had this in my stash, so I thought, well, I'm going to do this one. So to me, this is a showstopper. It's huge. It is something that I have had in my stash for a while because it's a little intimidating. And to me, that says showstopper. I'm going to tell you how big it is. It is 435 stitches by 363 stitches. And she stitched it on, picture this plus doubloon, 28 count. Wow, that's going to be huge. 1/2, so that's like 14 count, same as 14 count. And that's a big piece. I'm going to do it smaller. So I'm going to either do it on 40 count or I'm going to go to my favorite, which is 25 count Lugana. That's probably what I'll do, 25 count Lugana, and that'll narrow down the size a little bit. It's still going to be a big piece, but I'm really excited to do it. The thing about patterns like this is there are so many small motifs that each one feels like a finish. So instead of one big huge house that takes forever to stitch, you've got, well, you're going to stitch a bird, and then you're going to stitch a flower, and then you're going to stitch a peacock, and then you're going to stitch a dog. And so there's a lot of cool things in here. I also love, can you see the apple tree? That's really cool too, a fun apple tree. So Showstopper September, if you'd like to join us, jump in. There's no deadline to this, it's just something fun. I just want to encourage you to start something that is meaningful to you in a showstopper way. You can take 2 years to do it. You can work on it a little bit each month. Maybe you work on it the second weekend of the month or the first day of the month, however you want to schedule yourself. If you're going to join in with us, let's do Showstopper SAL, hashtag Showstopper SAL for Stitch Along. And I'm going to love seeing what you guys pick. One of the things I love most about knitting camp and also the cross stitch camp this summer is seeing how people interpret the challenge and seeing what they pick. And so it's going to be fun to see all of your showstoppers and what you decide to work on if you're going to join in with us. So thank you, Brenda, for that idea. And I'm looking forward to his eyes on the sparrow. And I'm just really excited to have a reason to jump into it. It's one of those things that I put off because I think, well, that's a big project. I don't have time for that yet. But you know what? Like little by little, and then you're done. And I saw that happen with my All Creatures Great and Small, and so I'm really excited to do this one. All right, so the question of the day is whether you're going to join in on Showstopper September or not. Is there a big showstopper kind of a project in your stash or on your list of someday I'm going to buy this and do it? Do you have a big showstopper? So, question of the day. Let me know if you have something like that that you want to work on someday, whether it's this September or not. Right, let's do giveaways. So we have a giveaway from last time. You had to use the word vacation in your comment. And it was for this fabulous project bag by Deborah at Joyful Stitching. Deborah, thank you again for donating project bags for my Flosstube giveaways. The winner is Jennifer Hacker. So Jennifer, my email address is below. Get in touch with me and I will get this sent right off to you. And then we have one that was never claimed, sadly. I love this one so much I bought my own self one because I love gnomes. And so this one is our giveaway for this month. Now, if you won this, if you're the person that won it a couple months ago and you watched that video, you're going to be sad when I tell you, sorry, I gave it to somebody else, unclaimed. So if you are interested in this one, use the word August in your comment. August, like the month. Leave me some comment and I'll know you want to be entered in for this one. All right, just one more quick word about cross stitch camp if you're doing that with us. If you're not, please join in. We have had The most generous makers donate project bags and thread drops and patterns and, you know, finishing boards and all kinds of things. I have posted all of the winners, all of the donations on my Instagram page. If you don't follow me, please follow me there, Colorado Cross Stitcher. We've just had, this community is so generous anyways, and we've just had the most wonderful donations. And there are a lot of prizes each month. So I generally do 1 or 2 grand prizes depending on what has been donated for that. And the grand prize is drawn from all of the people who finish within the month. The extra prizes are drawn from all of the people who have participated that month. So there's still time for you to jump in and get in on some of the drawings for August. Again, the challenge is a new to you fabric or floss. And so if you've got a different size fabric, a different color fabric, a different type of floss, a lot of people are trying silks or sulky for the first time, which is super fun to see. And so jump in with us. There's a couple things that you need to do if you want to go for the prizes. So I am asking you to have an Instagram account. Instagram is our social media of record. Facebook is our social media of talking and discussing. On Instagram, I can search by the hashtag Cross Stitch Camp, all one word, and see everybody who has tagged their project and participating. And that's how I keep track of my pages and pages of lists of those of you who are doing it. And then, so you need to post a picture of a start picture, a picture of the floss, the fabric, and the cover of the pattern, so we can see that it's something new. You're just starting it this month. So post that, and then when it's finished, post a project photo of the finished project, and that has to be turned in by the last day of August. So you can do it anytime before that, but August 31st, 31 days. August 31st is the last day to post your finished project photo to be entered into the drawing for the grand prize people who finished everything. All right, you need to hashtag Cross Stitch Camp, and you need to tag me using the little @ symbol at Colorado Cross Stitcher. Now, I go through every day. Once in a while, every day and a half, but generally every day, I go through and update my lists of all the people who are hashtagging so that I have a current list of the participants, a current list of all the finishers. When you finish, I make your name on my list bold so I know which ones of you have finished. Interestingly, we had 65% of participants finish in June and 67% finish in July. So the percentage is going up. And of course, we have hundreds and hundreds of people doing this, which has been super fun. So make sure to tag me. If you do not see that I have clicked the little heart button and liked your project photo, please message me on Instagram. For some reason, once in a while, even though you've hashtagged correctly and you've tagged me, for some reason it doesn't show up. I don't know. There's no rhyme or reason to it as far as I can tell. So if you see that I have not liked your picture, and it's been 2 days, then make sure to message me so I can get you on the list. And if you're looking for some really super fun projects and inspiration, go search by that hashtag Cross Stitch Camp to see what everybody's working on, because it's been super fun to see everybody's stuff. All right, I think that is all for today. But I've already started my list on things I want to talk to you about next time, things that aren't ready for me to talk about yet on this one, but it's going to be exciting, fun things for the next time. So thank you for joining me every month. I know I don't Flosstube as much as a lot of people do. I hope to change that in the future, but right now every 4 weeks works for me, and I just so appreciate you guys jumping in. And hit the subscribe button and the little bell, and then you'll be notified when I have one up. But basically every 4 weeks you can count on a Flosstube from me. I'm glad you joined me. I look forward to seeing you the next time. Bye everybody.